Hi girls, this video is about melody writing in musical songs, and so you should have written your lyrics by now and you should have a chord progression as well. Sometimes it's easier to write the melody first then come up with the chords, other ways it's easier to do it the other way. But the way I'm looking at it in this video is that you already have your chord progression and you're going to come up with a melody. We're going to look at some really great melodies from some musical composers such as Andrew Lloyd Webber. And we're going to start by looking at Memory from the musical Cats. Okay, so this song, Memory, has a pretty basic chord progression. It's actually written in C major, so it has chord 1 to start with, C major, then it goes to chord 6, A minor, la, do, mi, do, la, then it goes to chord 3, E minor, so, mi, except I voiced it differently, but still E minor, holds on to E minor. Then the next chord he's used is D minor 7, so that's re, fa, la, fa, re, except to add the 7 we go up to Do, so re, fa, la, do, la, fa, re. I'm playing it differently, but it's the same notes. Then A minor 7, la, do, mi, do, la, and we're adding in la, mi, so, mi, do, la, because that's the 7th note above la. La, ti, do, re, mi, fa, so. So that's our 7th. Then chord 5, 7. So chord 5 is so, ti, re, ti, so. So it's G major when we're in C. And we're adding in the 7th, so la, ti, do, re, mi, fa. That's the 7th note. I can play it differently, but it's basically G7. And then we go to chord 1. So that's his progression. So the progression is 1, 6, 3, 2, 7, 6, 7, 5, 7, 1. So by now you should have mapped out your composition kind of like this. So this is the rhythms and the lyrics. So midnight, not a sound from the pavement, has the moon lost her memory. So basically the lyrics are set to a rhythm. So that's what you should have done with your lyrics by now. And there's a chord progression chosen here. So this is a very basic chord progression. Chord 1, chord 6, chord 3, chord 3 again, chord 2, 7, chord 6, 7, chord 5, 7, and chord 1. And those 7th chords sound really cool. So think about adding 7th to chords to kind of spice them up a little bit. And the rhythms are written out, and you can see I've written in the solfa notes. That's going to guide what sort of notes you can choose for your melody, because basically you should be trying to fit notes that fit your chords. If you choose notes that are outside of that, they're going to stand out. Sometimes that's a good thing and it sounds really great, and other times it just sounds horrible. So you've got to judge that with your ear and be really critical as you're writing it. So now we're going to look at what Andrew Lloyd Webber actually chose for his song. So that I'm in the same key as what the music's written in, I'm not going to play you the YouTube version, although you can look it up. It's Memory from Cats. I'm going to play it on the piano for you. So here's our key, C major. So it starts on a Do. It's a high Do. The notes used are, and I'm going to just move back to the written out copy. Okay, so here's our notes again. So Andrew Lloyd Webber has started on a high Do. So I'm going to write them in underneath, which is not great when this note heads are there, but I don't really have a lot of room. So he starts on a Do, he goes Do, Do, Ti, Do, Re, Do, La, Do. So you should have worked that out using your ears, you listen, but for the purposes of this, I'm just going to show you. So Do, Do, and then it goes down to T. So I'm using a dash to show it's high Do. Ti, Do, Re, high Re, Do, La. I like that. So do, do, ti, do, re, do, la. See how stepwise that is? You can look at it on the piano. Do, do, ti, do, re, do, la, do. So I'm not jumping all over the piano. I'm staying very close. At the moment he's only used 4 notes, so keep that in mind. And see how he's sticking to the chord. He's got do, 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 do there. He has used re and ti and la, but only basically as passing notes. Remember in year 10 or 11 I would have talked to you about passing notes. So basically sticking with the notes in the chord, but then you can pick other notes that go around it. And please excuse that dog in the background. That's my friend's dog. Just wanting to say hello. Okay, so we keep on going. Do, do, ti, do, re, do, la, do. So he sticks with the high do. Do, do, ti, do, re, do, la. Oh, do, so, excuse me. So do, do, ti, do, re, do. And these are all high ones. And then it goes down to a so. So basically, still sticking with pretty much steps. Do, do, ti, do, re, do, so, la. So we're going to down to there, dropping to the so. But basically, it's pretty much stayed in the same spot. So if I play that on the piano for you, even if you're not a good piano player, I'm sure you can follow this. Do, do, ti, do, re, do. Oops, excuse me. Do, do, ti, do, re, do, la, do, do, ti, do, re, do, so, la. So this is the only point that we're changing. So see how alike those two phrases were? Something to think about when you're writing a melody. Don't make it too different, otherwise it won't go. But what is cool about that is it started on a C chord, and it sounds different because now we have an A minor chord, and see the do still fits with the A minor chord, but it's so it's a different chord but pretty much the same melody. So then we go to la la fa sol la sol fa mi. Oh, and there is the dog. Hello. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so it goes from the beginning. Do, do, ti, do, re, do, la, do, do, ti, do, re, do, so, la, la, fa, sol, la, sol, fa, mi. So see the mi is part of the next chord. Then it goes mi, so, so, re. So mi, so, so, re. Mi, fa, sol, la, ti. So fa, sol, la, ti, just going up by step. And what's interesting about it is he's used these duplets. So it's 2 quavers in the space of 3 quavers. So it's kind of the opposite of a triplet. Mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, di, la, so. So it's just going back down by step. Do, di, la, so. And then mi, do, so. Holding on. Now this is where there's a really big leap, which is the only really big leap in this. So it goes down to a low la, 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 ti, do, and it ends on a low do. So if we analyse that melody, see how we're pretty much using notes of the chords. So do, 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 do. They're all notes in A minor, and the others are just passing notes. We've got, here is different because we've got la, and we've only got mi, so ti in it. So that la is going to stand out, and that's going to sound actually quite nice. So there's mi, so ti, la, la, fa, sol, la, sol, fa, mi. So it sounds quite nice against it. Occasionally you can pick notes outside the chord, but you've got to use your ear to see whether it sounds good or whether it sounds horrible. Same with here. We've got chord 2, 7, and then so, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. But it really, really works there. So you can use that as a feature if you do it well. Always be guided by your ear. You know what sounds good and what doesn't sound good. Be honest with yourself though. Do, ti, la, so. Pretty much notes in the chord. Mi, do, so. Just out of the chord. La la. The la is not in the chord though, and that's why it stands out to your ear. La la ti do. Even though it's steps up to the last note here, the la clashes against that chord in a good way, so it sounds really nice. Okay, so that was Memory. Now we're going to look at another one. Okay, so next song we're looking at is Singing in the Rain from Singing in the Rain. Here I've written out the rhythms, so we're in 4/4, so 1, 2, 3, ta, 2, ka tim, ka 2, 3, ta, 2, ka tim, ka 3, tim, ka 2, ka ta, 2, ta, ta, 2, ka 2, ta, 3, ta, etc. So I haven't written out the whole thing here. Now we've got a very basic chord progression which I'm going to play for you now, but you can see it's 1, 6, 1, 1, 1, 6, so G6. So a sixth note above do is la, do, re, mi, fa, so la. So the la is added into the chord. 1. Now this is the trickiest chord in it. G sharp is not in G major scale, and neither is a diminished chord on G sharp anyway. So basically it's D, not do. If we take do up one note, it makes a D, mi, so. That makes 2 minor thirds, D to mi, mi to so. And then the 7th note, which is T. So that's a very, very interesting chord. It's a sharp 1 diminished 7th. So think about that for a while to get your head around it. So that's something different. So it's just moving up by a semitone, which gives it an interesting flavour there. Then D7, which is a 5/7 chord, and then D7. I'm not going to go any further because it's kind of similar, but this should show you a few techniques anyway. Okay, so here's our chord progression. So we have 1, 6, 1, 1, 6, 1. Now we've got our G sharp diminished 7th, which is a 1 diminished 7th, so it's kind of cool. And then it goes to D7 on A. So D7 is 5/7, so that's so T re with a fa added in, but it's got an A bass rather than having a D bass. We're using the so as the bass notes. It sounds kind of different. And then just a normal D7, and then the song keeps going on. So now I'm going to play it for you. You probably know the song. You can sing along if you want to. I'm singing in the rain, just just excuse that. Now the solfa notes that are used are, it goes so, so, mi, re, do, la, so, do, do, re, mi, so, so, do, re, mi, so, mi, re, la, and I'm only going up to there. So if you listen closely to that, you'll notice there's a lot of stepwise, so I'll show you on the piano. So if you see that visually on the piano, it's so, so, mi, re, do, la. So lots of steps down, isn't it? So, do, do, re, mi, so. So at one point, excuse the dog again. At one point it's going down, then it goes up, then it goes on. So lots of do, re, mi, so, and low las. So, so, mi, re, la. So, so, mi, re, la. And then it continues to go on. So lots of repeating of the same notes with different chords underneath. I'm going to show you what that looks like on the piece of paper. Okay, so if we look at how the notes have worked out, we've got so, so. That's part of the chord. The mi and the do are part of the chord. So pretty much sticking in with the chords. La, so the la is part of the chord, and that's on a strong beat, so it matches the chord. So do, re, mi, so. So see, this is matching our chord here, our chord 1. So, la, do, re, mi, so. Now that is still part of the chord. It only sounds different because we've changed the chord underneath it. So that's another effect you can do. You can keep the same notes and just change in the melody and change the chords underneath, and you can get a totally different effect. So, mi, re, la. So basically, there's a lot of stepwise movement in this with a few skips, and most of the notes match the chords. There's some little passing notes and there's some outside of the chord used for effect, but basically the composer is sticking with notes from the chords. So something to keep in mind for when you're writing your own melodies. Okay, this is an advanced example. If it confuses you too much, just ignore it. But I know some of you can handle this sort of examples, so I'm showing you anyway. So this is from West Side Story. It's called Somewhere by Stephen Sondheim and Leonard Bernstein. Very, very beautiful piece of music and a more complex melody than the other two examples that I showed you. So we're in E flat major. You can see by the B flat, E flat, A flat key signature. And there's a more difficult chord progression. So we've got the B flat chord, which is chord 5, then B flat 7, which is chord 5-7. You can write them out using your do, re, mi, fa, so and writing out the scale if you want to check my work. Go for it. E flat, chord 1, A flat, chord 4. So nothing out of the ordinary, just regular chords for E flat major. F minor, chord 2 in E flat major, pretty ordinary. B flat on D, so it's a chord 5 with a D bass. So the second note of the chord is on the bass. Chord 1-7. So remember to chuck in a few seventh chords, very, very musical theatre. So even if your chord progression is not that interesting, make some of the notes sevenths and it will instantly add a little bit of excitement. A flat, so chord 4. If we flip over, B flat, so that's chord 5, B flat on A flat, so that's something a little bit interesting. So the B flat on A flat is chord 1, but it's got a 7th bass. It's not even part of the key signature. So that's something else to experiment with, just taking a regular chord and throwing in some different sort of bass note. It can be something from left field. Just play around with it and see how it sounds, because in this case it sounds really, really nice. G minor, so chord 3, pretty normal for this key. C minor, so that is our chord 6. The first time ending we go to A flat, part of the key signature again, so that's chord 4. D flat, which as you can see is not even part of our key signature. So regularly we should have a D diminished chord. So we would normally have, because D is the 7th note in E flat major, hope you're still following. So it would normally be D, F, A flat. So on the piano, that looks like this. D, F, A flat. So minor third, which is what our 7th chord usually is in a major scale. It's usually a diminished chord. But here, he's used a flat 7 chord, flat major 7. So it's just a regular D major chord, D flat major chord. So that's something interesting, that flat major 7, and I'm sure we've seen that in some other examples as well, because it's quite a well used little trick. Then the next one, we go back to chord 4, but we keep a D flat bass. So that's sort of keeping a little bit of continuity from the crazy flat 7 major chord, and then just going into a regular chord but with a D flat bass. And you'll know that A flat major chord doesn't usually have a D flat in it. So again, it's something different. And then we go back to B flat. Quite interesting that we're not finishing on a chord 1, we're finishing on a chord 5, but that's because we're about to go back to the first verse and there's going to be a repeat. Okay, so I'm going to play a little bit of that for you so you can hear what it sounds like. Okay, so first I'm just going to play you the chord progression so you can hear it. So this is our key, E flat major. We're starting on chord 5. So interesting, we're not starting on chord 1. I haven't played you the intro though, so this is just where the song starts. So chord 1, chord 1-7, chord 4, sorry, chord 1 I should say, excuse me, let's start that again, chord 5, chord 5-7, chord 1, chord 4, chord 2, that's a minor chord, chord 5, with a different bass note, so it's the D, it's B flat on D, chord 1, oops, and I just made that one up. Chord 1-7, chord 4, chord 5, chord, see that? I really love that chord. So So that is chord 5 with an A flat bass. So B flat on A. So we've added in a fa on the bottom. So it's so, ti, re, ti, so with the fa bass. And then, see how that bass line, the bass line drops down one note. So now we go to chord 3, so that's a minor chord, then chord 6, then we go to chord 4, then this is the flat major 7. Do you like the sound of that? I really like that. And then for some continuity, we keep that D flat bass and we put an A flat major chord over the top. Doesn't that sound awesome? And then we go to chord 5. So please excuse my enthusiasm, but I just really love those chords. So if now we look at the melody, I'm going to sing the solfa notes and try and follow along with the music. So it starts on a sol, which is interesting, not starting on a do. So, but remember we're starting on chord 5 as well, so another interesting choice. Something to trial in your own compositions. Sol, fa, mi, do, la, la, sol, fa, mi, do, la. And then ti, do, re, mi, fa, sol, mi, do, la, mi, la, do, ti. Very interesting, finishing a melody on a T. So that's another very interesting choice. I'm now going to play that with the chords so you can hear what that sounds like. Okay, so Somewhere from West Side Story. There's a place for us, somewhere a place for us, peace and quiet and open air, wait for us somewhere. And if I play that with solfa, you can hear the combination of some really cool chords, some interesting choices like T there, some combinations of notes outside of the chord can make your music really, really nice. So you can bend the rules and get a fantastic effect, but you have to use your ears and just check, does it sound good or does it sound just really awful? So once you kind of know the rules, then you can play around with them and make your pieces spectacular. And I really look forward to seeing what you come up with.